What terrified you as a kid that isn't scary now? My grandmother's wallpaper at night. Opening the shower curtain. I was sure there was some monster or murderer waiting for me behind it. My bedroom as a kid was a den converted into a bedroom, laundry room, and one wall was covered in a black mirror with gold paint flecks. Very 70s. But at night the shadows combined with the dark glass and paint made me imagine faces, figures, etc. It really scared me, and I would line up my stuffed animals along my bed to protect me. Catching fire. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get set on fire at all. But the amount of stop, drop, and roll lessons I got in kindergarten made me think this was going to be a once-a-year thing at minimum. Asking my grandpa a question. Man, was he intimidating to talk to as a kid. Now I love talking to him when I can. Bees and wasps. To be honest, I still prefer they don't buzz around me, but when I was little I remained a safe 5 meters away from them. Paint. I thought if you got it on you it would never come off, since it never came off of the walls. There was a huge abandoned windmill in our neighborhood that once pumped water from the river. At random, the windmill blades would start to turn at night, never in the day. As kids that used to hang out nearby, it felt like the windmill was haunted as it came to life. At dark hours, that worms would come out of my shower head. A straight row of fully grown trees. Grew up in the desert. Trees were around but not packed densely and were mostly Palo Verde trees or palm trees, but there was a row of trees that looked like what I consider most would imagine typical trees look like, and that one row of trees was also in close proximity to a large prison. My brother told me that's where Mr. Bugatti lived and where the escaped murderers would hide when they'd break out of prison. Oh yeah. Did I mention we had a guy break out of prison and murder the town librarian when I was a kid? So, yeah. Tree lines. Edited to add. In my haste last night I did not go and fact check my childhood memories. I had conflated escaped inmates and the librarian murder into the same story. It's not. What I was confused about was the memory of my dad picking me up on my walk home from school. Normally I would walk past the library, because he knew that the search for the murderer of the librarian was ongoing. And there were a few times we locked down the school and the rumor mill was that there was a prisoner escape. I have no idea on how I could verify that or not. Although, there have been prisoners that have taken correctional officers as hostages and a librarian at the prison as a hostage in attempts to escape. The Beast from the Sandlot. Freaked me out back then. But now that I can see how low budget the dog looks. Still an amazing movie, by the way. I find it a bit less scary. The video for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Thunderstorms. I used to hide under the covers and could only run from the room between flashes. Now I will sit at the window and watch. I love a good thunderstorm now. All it took was a very weird 9-ish-year-old me to stand at the window during a big storm and yell things like, "Is that all you've got?" Yeah. Kinda like Lieutenant Dan, but before I ever saw Forrest Gump. The little doll guys from the movie 9. Scared me when I was like 6. Jesus randomly showing up during dinner. I thought he'd use the door. Clearly I was raised to fear the wrath of God. Edited. Thank you for my first awards. Flushing the toilet. Looking at mirrors in the night. Thought they would become haunted in the dark. Edit. Thank you guys. Really needed it. Didn't know this would be such a relatable thing. I did think it was a really unique weird type of fear. Edit 2. Till that my fear was based on an optical illusion. As presented in some of the replies that pointed to this video. Which explains it. The movie Jeepers Creepers. The dark. Just kidding, I'm still a little bitch. Large Marge. Opening a can of Pillsbury biscuits. Just waiting for that pop. After unraveling the paper. Spooky. Running up the basement stairs after turning off the light. JK, that shit is still terrifying. I was always afraid of Baby Bell cheese. Not sure why. But I'm over it now that I'm older. My ever-growing apathy towards life took out most fears. Foot hanging off the bed and monsters can get me. Good. I have work in the morning. Hades from Hercules. Now I like him better than any other villain. Being spanked. Thistles and cacti. Basically any plant that had nasty spikes. Whenever I'd walk in a grass field and see a tiny thistle plant near my foot, I would stop dead in my tracks and call for help. Nowadays, I still get uneased at the thought of falling onto those things. Especially the giant thistles. As a kid, I was somehow able to watch the first 2 Jurassic Park movies so much that I knew the script off by heart by age 5, but an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine scared the shit out of me. This was about the time the show started to move away from adapting Audrey's stories and started writing their own scripts. As part of this, they decided to make a bunch of spooky episodes. I was fine with all of them except one about a big boulder. From memory, the gist of the story is they open a new quarry right at the spot a gigantic boulder sits on top of a cliff. One of the engines, Rusty, hates the place cause it feels as if the boulder's watching him. Eventually, they destabilize the cliff enough that the boulder drops onto the tracks and you have a series of Indiana Jones-style chases. So what exactly was so scary about it? Simple really, the boulder had a face. Now I know you're wondering. But don't all the trains have faces? Yeah, but their faces are distinct from the rest of them to the point you can tell they're meant to have faces. The thing with the boulder is that it didn't consistently have a face. It only has a face at a couple of points in the episode that randomly appears. So it's a normal rock. Normal rock and then bam, it's a rock with a very angry face. I think it was the inconsistency of whether the rock was sentient or not that freaked young me out. After confessing this to a friend as an adult, I ended up finding the episode on YouTube and just laughing at how ridiculous it was being scared of it. The greatest irony of all. I went from being terrified of a rock to getting a degree in geology. The Bermuda Triangle. I've encountered it a lot less than I thought I would have. Escalators. Many thanks to Rescue 911 for convincing me I was going to get eaten by one if my shoe was untied. The THX logo. Edit. Thank you. My first award. Literally my own shadow. My mom. She's dead. Gorillas. That SpongeBob episode as a kid scarred me. I would have to close my eyes once that part came on and my brother had to telephone me when it was over. My uncle, knowing I was scared of it, told me killer gorillas lived in the dark part of the basement. So every time I went down there for something, I'd sprint full speed back up the stairs. Velociraptors. Nothing. Everything is 1,000,000 times scarier now than it was when I was a kid. Edit. Thanks for the awards, folks. Glad to see I'm not the only one who thinks being a grown-up is scarier than we could have possibly imagined. Cicadas. Or more precisely, their sound. Also dragonflies. For the same reason. Sun death. Also I cried when I saw a black woman for the first time. That pipe screensaver from Windows. I had nightmares getting crushed by them. When I rarely get them now, I sometimes can use them for lucid dreaming. So I win. The Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. A stuffed dead pheasant my dad shot while hunting. It scared me so much he had to keep it in the garage. Seeing a scary thumbnail on a YouTube video and randomly think of it throughout the day. E.T. I swore he lived in my bedroom closet. I watched the movie with my cousins on Thanksgiving when I was little, and to this day I've never watched the whole thing. It doesn't terrify me anymore, but I just don't have any desire to watch it. Thanks to Goosebumps. I was afraid of loofahs. Sponges. And those little poofball things you wash off with. I didn't get over this stupid fear into adulthood after I got married. The space under the bed. Dinosaurs. I knew they were extinct. But I was still terrified of a T-Rex pulling the roof off my house and eating me. Balloons. Specifically, balloons popping. When I was really young, my dad popped one near my face as a joke. But it really traumatized me. I hated going to birthday parties because there were always games where you had to pop a balloon in some form. This one is completely random. The song, One Way or Another, scared me so badly me as a child. I would cover my ears when it played. My big sister worked at the skating rink and would do double duty babysitting me while she worked. They played that song exactly one time while we were there. I freaked out. It was dark in there and the song was loud and coming from everywhere. They had this little coin-operated cartoon booth, sort of like a photo booth. Get in, draw the curtain. But instead of a camera, there is a television. You put in a quarter and it plays a random cartoon. I hid in there, scream, crying and kicking anyone who tried to check on me with roller skate-clad feet. They turned the music off completely so that my sister could get me out of the booth. My sister made sure that they never played it while I was there again. Another time we were watching The Muppet Show and there was a pretty blonde woman hosting. Then this bitch starts singing One Way with a bunch of fucking monsters. I jumped up and ran to my room and hid in my closet. I couldn't trust my favorite TV shows anymore either. I have no idea why I was so afraid of that song. But it genuinely terrified me. I like it fine now. The movie Mars Attacks. Fantasia Mickey. Pretty sure it was a nightmare that started it, but I was terrified of him for several years. My sisters then thought it was funny to hide a little figurine of him in my room and move it around at random to scare me even more. The Unsolved Mysteries theme music. Hearing that then stories of missing kids and ghosts led to many sleepless nights as a kid. Adult me binge watches the show now. Quicksand. Really thought it was a major issue.